Last night, Democrat and Washington insider Ed Markey was declared the winner of Massachusetts' special election to fill the Senate seat, vacated by Secretary of State John Kerry. Markey defeated former Navy SEAL Gabriel Gomez. Gomez had been billed as a new kind of Republican who could compete and even win in a traditionally blue state like Massachusetts. He's the kind of candidate the party has been trying to recruit to try to prevent another 2012. Well, that didn't happen. Mr. Gomez lost. So what, if anything, can Republicans learn from last night's result? Joining me now is Alleigh Marré, a regional press secretary for the National Republican Congressional Committee. Alleigh, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So what happened, Alleigh? Your guy lost. He was supposed to be a new kind of Republican. He was a Navy SEAL. He was the son of immigrant parents, but he went down by 10 points.
He did, and I think it's really important to remember with Massachusetts, when you see Scott Brown, someone like Brown is an anomaly. There's only 11% registered Republicans in Massachusetts, and in order for someone to even really be competitive on the Republican side, you need every single Republican to vote for you. You need 2/3 of independents and 20% of Democrats, and that's really, really an uphill climb, and it's not something that's easy. The climate just wasn't right.
So, Alleigh, are you saying that Republicans should just write off blue states like Massachusetts because, you know, the voter numbers just don't add up?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's always things that can be done to turn out voters. We saw a record low in turnout last night, but it's important to remember that in 2010 with Scott Brown versus what we saw last night with Gabriel Gomez, there wasn't that unifying issue. You know, everything that's going on in Washington right now doesn't have that same kind of effect that Obamacare did in 2010, and that was something that united Republicans, Democrats, and independents in Massachusetts, and it was just a toxic issue. And Scott campaigned on being the 41st vote for that. So it's a lot easier for a Republican in a blue state when you can find that unifying issue, and I think that was a little bit more difficult to find this time around for Gomez.
So that's interesting, Alleigh. So the scandals that are engulfing the presidency with NSA, we have the IRS, the tapping of journalists, and on it goes. And the president's poll numbers are nosediving in Massachusetts. His job approval is low there, yet Congressman Markey, now Senator Markey, actually invited the president to come out on the campaign trail. So is what you're saying is that for a Republican to campaign in a blue state, that running against the president and using scandals really just doesn't fly with those blue voters?
Yeah, it doesn't at all. And the biggest thing that Republicans running in Massachusetts need to remember is that it's really being an independent. So when you're looking at where money and funding is coming from, it's not helpful to have organizations like the NRSC or Crossroads involved in the race, because it's really hard for someone like Gabriel Gomez to call himself independent if he's getting that outside money from Washington, D.C. and from the national Republicans. And then in addition to that, the Democrats just turn around, send out a fundraising letter, and raise twice the ad buy anyway, invoking Karl Rove's name. So it's a really, really difficult climate. And, you know, while Ed Markey was a flawed candidate, he wasn't as flawed as someone like Martha Coakley, who, as you might remember, called Curt Schilling a Yankees fan. So without those kinds of, you know, on-the-ground mistakes, it's just a different environment.
So, Alleigh, quickly before we go, what is it about the Republican National Party that's such a turnoff to these blue state voters? Because they are willing to vote for Republicans, say, at the governor level. We have a Republican in New Jersey, Mitt Romney, former governor of Massachusetts. Is it really that national party label that tends to doom these candidates that are trying to run for national election?
I wouldn't say it's the national party label. I think the Democrats in Massachusetts specifically have done a very good job of identifying a Republican with the most extreme member of the national party. So in 2012, they tried to link Scott Brown to Todd Akin, even though he had called on him to resign before anybody else. So it's not necessarily the Republican brand, but it's the most extreme wing of the Republican brand, and it's really important that those independent Republicans are able to distance themselves from them.
Got it. Alleigh, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you. Thanks.